The Doctor Is In is a co-production of Ave Maria Radio and EWTN Radio and carried across the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
I need you to knock some sense into me. I'm sure you can.
Yeah, I don't know.
I enjoy listening to you. I don't always agree with everything.
All right, enough of this persiflage.
So, you want my question?
I'm certainly not going to get myself in trouble by telling you what to do.
That makes great sense. Gosh, that's good.
That I overwhelm you with words and wisdom?
I've got 7 kids. I feel like I could call you every day.
Wait, you're telling me I'm wrong? Disconnect.
Yes, I am, Dr. Ray.
You just need to tune in to Dr. Ray, honey. He's got all the answers.
Am I right or am I right?
Probably.
Now, from the studios of Living Bread Radio Network in Canton, Ohio, the hometown of Mother Angelica, here's Dr. Ray.
A graduate, Catholic Media's School of Articulation and Stuff. And stuff is a great word. You know what I've noticed is another filler word? I talk a lot about filler words. People beginning their answer with, well, you see that on TV an awful lot when people are interviewed. I would say 50% or more of the time. Well, they're probably just stalling to form their thoughts. Of course, I mean is big. You know is big. Perfect is big. Filler words called embolalia. There is another one I've noticed that is roaring up the list of filler words. It's because it's not even a word. I shall demonstrate. I was getting ready for the program, and I was thinking about what do I talk about with the letters that have come in. And so is the new one. Now, why do I notice these things? Because as a shrink, when somebody's in my office, I got to listen to what they say. I got to listen to the words they use. I got to connect the dots from this sentence to that sentence. If they said something 7 minutes ago, I got to see how that might fit with what they just said. And as a result, I have this hypersensitivity to filler words. Embolalia. Didn't realize that. But that's the name of it. Came across it. I have a thing that comes onto my phone. It's called Word Genius, where they give you 10 vocabulary words, use them in a sentence, and you try to guess what the definition is. They give you 4 choices of a definition. And it's kind of neat because they use a lot of the same words. And I've learned a lot of words that nobody in the world would ever use, like absquatulate, which means to leave abruptly. Tiffin, a light lunch. Arcturate, forming a curved bow. Who would use those words? I'm just waiting for one chance to slip them into a conversation. Sometimes I got to admit, though, I tend to use big words that I have no idea what they mean, so I can sound more photosynthesis. This is E-Person Monday. I was looking at the E-Persons. We'll get to those in a moment. Some are cute. Some take me to task. That's okay. As you get older, your perceptions change, right? About things, about people. Classic example of this was something that Mark Twain said later on in life. When I was 14, I could barely stand to have the old man around. That was his words. I could barely stand to have the old man around. When I was 21, surprised at how much he'd learned in 7 years. The translation to that, of course, is how much Mark Twain learned as a young adult in 7 years. We change. We change in our ideas. We change in the way we look at things. Many of you, me included, go back into your 20s, where perhaps you weren't even involved in religion at all. Or if you were, it was just a really loosey-goosey kind of thread-like attachment to it. Well, one of the things that I've noticed, besides the many changes that have happened to me, not just getting shorter with age, my prayers kind of change. One of my more frequent prayers is something along the lines of, Lord, show me what I'm like. Show me my sinfulness. Now that's a scary prayer. It can be. Who wants to see the negative stuff about themselves? Who wants to say, I never realized I was like that? I've had a few people here and there accuse me of it, and of course I fought it off defensively. But now I realize I got to see what things that I could change to walk closer to Christ. And by definition, I don't know they're there, so I got to ask that somehow, some way, the Lord lets me know, whether it's through increasing sensitivity to some ways that I speak, or attitudes that I have that aren't charitable, or somebody telling me, like my wife. I give her 100% credibility. I do. Because I know whatever she tells me is for my own good. It's not a put down. Lord, please, show me a little more what I am. Now, of course, the flip side of that is as you become more familiar with your weaknesses and your deficits, so therefore you can work by His grace to do something about them. The flip side of that is you can't slip into despair. You can't say, oh man, I didn't realize what a wretch I am. I always thought I was a good person, and now I'm finding out, man. My son was telling me something the other day. He's 28. We were talking about someone who was just living in many ways apart from the church. And he knew the history of that someone. He knew his wiring. He knew his intellect. He knew all kinds of things about him. And he said, God is going to judge him more leniently than He judges me, I believe. And I think Pete was right. When you find out more about what you're like, and it sometimes ain't pretty, it brings you to at least trust God more, that He loves you anyway. See, back when you thought you were a pretty good person, not like them other pagans and wretches out there, you could be more comfortable, I guess, more relying upon God's good view of you. But then when you start to see that in a lot of ways, you're not just a sinner, but you're a specific sinner. In other words, as long as we keep it generic, I'm a sinner, you don't have to get specific. But when you start getting specific about exactly how you are a sinner, well, that's when it starts to rattle you. So I find myself making that prayer more and more as I get older. And I have to keep reminding myself that even as I see more flaws in me, I still have to trust that God loves me, and this is one of His infinite ways of loving me, which is to let me see me more clearly. I think that's what purgatory is. Just my wild speculation, but you actually see yourself for who you are, what you were. That's rough. That's really rough. But it's good for you if you do something about it. When we get back, I will dive into your missives. Oh, sorry. Can't say that. Ms. MS, Ivs, Ms. Ivs, Person Ivs, something Ivs, Dr. Ray.
In her diary, St. Faustina wrote, "If only I had a spiritual director from the beginning, I would not have wasted so many of God's graces. If even the saints needed spiritual guidance, how much more do we? The nonprofit Revive app lets you meet virtually with certified spiritual companions, scheduling sessions at your convenience, helping you grow closer to Christ. Your first 2 sessions are free. Download the Revive app today. That's REVIV, and then the number 3.
The following program is brought to you in part by MyCatholicWill.com. Surveys show that more than half of Americans do not have a will. At MyCatholicWill.com, it takes as little as 15 minutes to write your will and secure a legacy of faith. MyCatholicWill.com is the exclusive online destination for creating a Catholic will. The process of writing a will is simple and now more accessible than ever. MyCatholicWill.com, a legacy of faith for those you love.
Hello, Steve Ray here from Footprints of God Pilgrimages. The land of our Lord and Our Lady is calling us. We're heading back to the Holy Land over Christmas break this year. We have the best, most reliable guides and services awaiting us. The holy sites are open, and the local Christians are anxious to see us. Galilee, Jerusalem, Nazareth, Bethlehem. No crowds, no lines. Hope you can join us.
Find the Ave Maria Radio travel tab at avemariaradio.net. Do you own popular index mutual funds or ETFs? If so, you're automatically owned shares of companies that conflict with your moral beliefs. Ave Maria mutual funds are managed to conform to pro-life and pro-family values. Long-term investors can invest in the no-load Ave Maria mutual funds. The experienced professional portfolio managers make decisions based on investment fundamentals and pro-life values. You can learn more about Ave Maria mutual funds today at 866 Ave Maria or visit AveMariaFunds.com.
This is Cy Kellett. Join me for Catholic Answers Live. It's 2 hours dedicated to Catholic apologetics and evangelization. Designed for Catholics and non-Catholics alike, it's your opportunity to hear from and talk with some of the leading apologists and theologians in the church today. You've got questions? We've got Catholic Answers. Catholic Answers Live, weekdays, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio.
One of my rules, of course, on the days we have call-ins, is if you disagree with me, you're put straight to the front. And if you disagree rather hostilely, you're put straight to the front even faster. That rule applies to ePerson Monday. You don't necessarily have to disagree with me to get pushed to the front. You can correct me and get pushed to the front. And a listener, and I've gotten e-persons from this gentleman before, and he's a great listener. He titled it, Oops. Hi, Dr. Ray. You made a mess of your literary reference today. I think I was talking about, if I remember correctly, that if there is no God, everything is permissible. And that was said by one of the characters in Brothers Karamazov with a Z. And I said, author Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Well, of course it wasn't Solzhenitsyn, but for whatever the reason, I couldn't dredge up the name of... I'm blanking on the name again. I forget. That's called lethologica. I do know that. It's the inability to recall a name or a word is called lethologica. I got that. I recalled that. But the author of the Brothers Karamazov was not Solzhenitsyn. It was Dostoevsky. Okay, got it. Dostoevsky. He said, you made a mess of your literary reference today. First of all, Dr. Ray, the Russian Z is pronounced like the English Z, so it is Karamazov, not Karamazov. Also, as I'm writing this, you received the correction on the author. That's right. Very, very shortly thereafter, I got a call, I remember maybe a couple of them, that said it is not Solzhenitsyn, Dr. Ray. Come on, that was the Russian dissenter, social commentator. It was Dostoevsky, Fyodor. See, I even knew his first name. I don't know his middle name. I think it's Fred. Fyodor Fred. Okay, maybe I'm wrong on that one. Dostoevsky. As I'm writing this, you received the correction, so I can skip that. Regards, Bruce. That was great. Bruce, I hope you're listening. That's funny. See what else we got here as I scroll down the phone. From Dr. Ray, do you have a book that would help parents with entitled 18 to 24-year-olds living at home? If not, could you write one, please? Would you buy it? You could title it, It's Not Too Late. This is her subtitle, Teaching Your Semi-Adult Children Accountability. I have addressed that in a couple of my books. I think one of them was Family Faith Under Fire. I think there was a question there regarding what do you do with a kid who's living at home and is either uncooperative or is drifting. And I talked about that in my book, Taught by 10. A psychologist's father learns from his 10 children. And the latter part of the book, I talked about finding something out about myself that I really wasn't sure of until I got to that point in my parenthood. And that was, could I make the decision? Now, see, that's wordy. If you're going to write a book, you don't say make the decision. You say decide. Could I decide to require my children to leave, giving them a limit, 1 month, find a place, if they were uncooperative or thought they just were too grown up to listen to dad's expectations of their behavior. Obviously, they're not 9, so I'm not going to treat them like 9-year-olds, but there are certain expectations for respect, for cooperation, for help, for carrying their own load, paying their share, those kinds of expectations. And if not, would I be reluctant? Would I be nervous? Would I be scared about saying, you got to figure out how you're going to live on your own? And I found out that I could do that. And the reason I could do that is because I didn't want to hurt my children. Dr. Ray, that doesn't make any sense. Aren't you worried about hurting your children if you make them leave? No, I think I would hurt them more by allowing them to live irresponsibly and uncooperatively in my home when they're young adults. And all that would happen is that they would continue to live that way if I couldn't influence them to be more cooperative and more pleasant. Now, fortunately, my children were not unpleasant. They were not disrespectful, because that was something that my wife and I took an incredibly strong stance against, backed by heavy consequences for disrespect. But at the same time, there are certain responsibilities expected of a 20-year-old or a 21-year-old. And if you meet them, then I will help you as best I can. My one son stayed at home till he was 26. He was in college, and he was very cooperative and pleasant. And, of course, so wasn't unusual. So given all that, a parent has a decision to make. And it's happening more and more commonly. I have more people coming to my office asking, what do I do about this child who is acting this way? Sometimes it's just a matter of drifting. There isn't a whole lot of friction, but there is a passive refusal to grow up. Perhaps being content with an 18-hour-a-week job, giving enough money that they can pay for their phone and use mom and dad's car. And sometimes it's just overt resistance. It's overt hostility or disrespect or argumentativeness and unpleasantness that just makes the whole household bad, especially if there are younger children watching all this. This is the oldest child, and all of a sudden, things have changed. When you get 18, I suppose, you can treat mom and dad and everybody else this way. Well, I'm 13. I only got 5 more years till I'm allowed to do that. So the parent has to make a decision, and I got to tell you, in my experience, most parents are very scared about that decision because they're not sure what's going to happen. Where's the child going to go? Where's he going to live? How's he going to live? Who's he going to move in with? What kind of wrong things could he get into? The parents are very afraid of this. So what happens, the trajectory is they tolerate, and there's friction, and there's angriness, and they tolerate, and there's friction and anger until they've had enough. And then at age 25, they take a stance. And a couple of things happen. One, an awful lot of ill will has been built up over the years. Back when this child was 19 and uncooperative, the ill will didn't have quite the history. It's got 6 more years of history now. That's one. 2, the relationship has really deteriorated. It was salvageable when the kid was 19. He's 25 now. There's a lot of deteriorations taking place. And so, in fact, it wouldn't be unusual that they would have no contact with this child for some period of time after he, well, if you want to say, is made to leave. That's 2. 3, the parents live with guilt. What if this child makes decisions that hurt him? Now, I'm using him. Could be a girl, too. Just don't want to say him or her, him or her, him or her, or them. I just can't get over using a plural predicate for a singular nominative. Those of you who remember your 9th grade grammar. What will happen to this child? Well, this adult. It's difficult. Sometimes there's disagreements within the marriage. One spouse has had enough, plenty have had enough, and the other spouse is scared to death of doing anything about it. So this uneasy friction continues. Now, our letter writer here says, what about entitled 18 to 24-year-olds living at home? Well, that's kind of easy to deal with. They can think all they want about what is their due, that you owe me this, mom and dad, but you don't have to give it. Who's paying for their car? Who's paying for their insurance? Who's paying for their smartphone? You still have major, major control over much. And if they're working full time. And they think because I work, I don't have to do anything at home because I work. You can charge rent. Rent is a great thing. And you can put the rent on a sliding scale. It's $300 a month if you're pleasant and cooperative. It's $500 a month if you're not. And it's $700 a month if you're disrespectful. You can do that. But you better be prepared to act if they don't pay you the money. That's the other problem. They'll give you your $200 because they don't think they're irresponsible or disrespectful, but you're the one who makes that decision. I think the question here for our letter writer is, how do I change their attitude? Even if I change my behavior so that I do not acquiesce to the entitlement, how do I change their attitude? Well, the first step is to not feed into the entitlement. That's the first step. The second step is going to be life. They're going to have to find out from life that when they go out there and they're not willing to work, or they get frustrated at their 7th job now because they just didn't like the boss, or they didn't like having to get up, or they started missing too many days, they're going to find out they can't have the things that they want to have that mom and dad have spent their life accumulating. They aren't going to get that 62-inch TV set. That's not going to happen. Well, I was going to say they can't afford it, but they're so cheap now. They'll find out. They'll find out from life. Dr. Ray.
He is only one of 4 popes honored as the Great.
Matthew Bunson and the Doctors of the Church.
St. Leo I was pope at a time when Roman civilization was being overrun by barbarian armies. He stood as a light in the darkness and even saved the city of Rome from destruction by Attila and the Huns. Leo died in 461.
For more about the Doctors of the Church, visit doctorsofthechurch.com.
What do we mean when we say the church is the body of Christ? From the very beginning, Jesus shared with his apostles his mission, his joys and sufferings, and the mystery of the kingdom. The Catholic Catechism points out that Jesus indicated the intimacy of his union with his followers when he said, "I am the vine, you are the branches. Abide in me, and I in you." When Jesus' visible presence was taken away from the apostles, they were not orphaned. Jesus sent them his Spirit. As a result, says the Catechism, communion with Christ is even more intense. Jesus mystically constitutes as his body all those brethren called together from every nation. The church is not only gathered around Christ, she is united in him, in his body. This is Peggy Stanton, and this has been the Order of Malta's Minute with the Catechism.
Strained or broken relationships are a given in most of our lives. Friends fall away, siblings drift apart, children sever ties with their parents, and despite our best efforts, these painful fissures are difficult to mend. Hi, I'm Dr. Ray. If you want to learn how to communicate better with the difficult people in your life and be a more easygoing, more forgiving person, check out my book, How to Get Along with Almost Everybody. Check it out. And all my other books on the store page at AveMariaRadio.net. That's AveMariaRadio.net. Very nice to have you with me. Dr. Ray Guarendi, this is E-Person Monday. Dear Dr. Ray, my name is Anonymous. I have spent most of my time living with Dad, who is a widower, and I am his caregiver due to him having multiple myeloma. I am an adult with learning disabilities, anxiety, and mild depression. I've had problems my brother doesn't understand, and he acts like I know everything. I think what she's saying is he's accusing her of being a know-it-all, she says, which are the words he uses on me. A year ago, my brother became narcissistic. All right, you don't generally become narcissistic. First of all, the word is too quickly used to describe people. Narcissistic personality disorder is a pretty significant personality disorder, and it's been stretched now just to capture people who are self-centered and difficult. What she's probably saying is some things have happened that have stretched and friction-filled a relationship. A year ago, my brother became narcissistic and domineering towards our dad by saying hurtful things to him. I can go on and on about my brother's behavior. He won't listen to anyone. What can be done? Well, I would wonder how your dad has responded to this. There's a couple ways to approach it. Obviously, he can confront it in some charitable way, if possible. A lot of times that does. The charitable initial intent to confront somebody lasts about 9 sentences until they react defensively or hostilely. But he can do it. He can try. See what happens. Or he could learn to ignore it. Or You could ask him to leave when he becomes difficult, hostile, accusatory, nasty. You could ask him to leave. I don't know, of course, why your brother has gotten more difficult toward your dad. I don't know if it's because of the progression of his illness that makes your dad less capable of being independent. I don't know. Because you said a year ago, was there some event? Something happened? What was it? You say he won't listen to anyone. What kind of life is your brother leading? If his own life is difficult, if his own life is fractured, if his own life has been a turbulent, bumpy ride, it doesn't surprise me then that in his unhappiness he would become difficult, hostile. That doesn't surprise me. I see. It's much more likely for somebody who's not living their lives well to be difficult to get along with. I mean, the two are almost a package deal. They're discontent with their own life, so they're definitely going to be more prickly, more resistant, more ugly toward other people. That kind of seems to be a common occurrence. You say your brother won't listen to anyone. Well, I'm going to assume you have tried. You've said, why are you doing this? And I'm going to go back to a couple sentences early where my brother acts like I know everything. In other words, whatever you say to point out what he's doing, he is defensive and accuses you of simply being a smart alecky know-it-all. So you're in a corner. And the corner is, what do I do? I don't know how often he comes over. I don't know whether your dad wants him there. If he does, then he's going to just put up with an awful lot or however much mistreatment. He's going to put up with it. He's decided, I want my son to have a relationship with me, however tenuous it is, and I'll put up with it. I think what you could do is talk to your dad. Rather than speaking to your brother about what he's doing, talk to your dad about how your dad is receiving it. Find out what it is that he's thinking when your brother does this to him. Does he say, I'm very ill and I don't want to leave this world having been estranged from my son, so therefore I'll put up with whatever he says? Does he say, I really don't want him to come over. I don't like what he's like when he's around me, and I'm struggling enough with my illness, and I don't want that piled on top of it. Is that what he says? Does he say, well, believe me, I've tried to get him to be a little more pleasant, and I don't get too far. So I think what you need to do is speak with your dad, find out how he perceives the brother's treatment of him, and whether he wants to just endure it or wants to do something about it. Now, when I say wants to do something about it, that doesn't automatically mean it's going to change the brother. Depending upon your dad's reaction to your brother may stop coming over. As I get older, I more and more respect people, and this goes back to my opening monologue, who can see how they come across. And the interesting thing, too, is I've also experienced that unless you really want to follow in Christ's footsteps, it's hard to look at yourself. Why would you? It's easy enough to say I'm right and you're wrong. Unless the virtues that Christ wants us to have force us to look at ourselves and say, gee, I'm doing that to my dad. Shouldn't be doing that. No matter how difficult he is, he's my dad. Supposed to honor him. If that's not there, if the attitude instead is, well, my old man's a pain in the butt, and I'm just going to let him have it when I come over here, and besides that, I don't like the way he raised me, and I don't like his personality, and therefore I'm entitled to say it. Well, if that's your brother's attitude, I don't know where you're going to go with it other than setting up some terms and see what he does with them.
Father Benedict Rochelle.
Some great people have shown respect for God. Can I read you a little quotation from Albert Einstein, who many times showed a great respect for religion and was one of the great admirers of Pope Pius XII for his stand against the Holocaust during the Second World War. Einstein wrote, "The fairest thing we can experience is the mysterious. It's the fundamental emotion that stands at the cradle of all true art and science. A knowledge of the existence of something we can't penetrate, of the manifestations of the profoundest reason and the most radiant beauty, which are only accessible to our minds in the most elementary form. It is this knowledge and this emotion that constitute the truly religious attitude." Oh my, so beautifully said.
The people you know and trust are on EWTN.
Christ is the answer with Father John Riccardo.
Let us strive to know the Lord. Quick question to you and me right now. Is that what you and I are doing every single day? When you and I wake up every day, do we strive to know Jesus or not? In the Old Testament, in the same book of Hosea, a little bit later on, it's in chapter 14, the Lord says through the prophet, "My people perish," or in another translation, "My people are being destroyed because of a lack of knowledge." Not a lack of data. We got tons of data. Not a lack of information. We got a lot of information. Not just about things that are happening in the world. We got a lot of data, a lot of knowledge, a lot of information about God, but not a lot of intimacy with God. Not a lot of relationship with God. Not a lot of friendship. That's the cry of God's heart. God wants to give himself to us in the incredible gift of friendship, and we're not taking advantage of it.
Thank you for joining me here on The Doctor Is In. This is E-Person Monday. My compatriot there in Ann Arbor is Andrew Kruchek, producer man. We will be, God willing, taping several episodes of Living Right with Dr. Ray, the TV show on TV show on EWTN, Global Catholic Television Network. Airs on Saturday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern, and then a couple of other times during the week. One of them is at 2 a.m., I believe, on Friday. That's a Pacific time. It's only 5 a.m. Eastern time, so I feel a little better about that. And then I believe 9:30 a.m. Eastern time on Tuesdays. We will be taping those shows because they're taped before a live audience. The audience asks questions. The audience is involved in various bits that we do. The audience is critical to the program. So we would love to have you there. The last time we were in Ann Arbor was 9 years ago with a live audience. We did it during COVID, but we used, what do you call those folks when you have them up there? It was kind of a cyber audience. But this one will be live, and it's been 9 years. If you'd like to be in the audience, we'd love to have you. So go to Ave Maria Radio, onebigword.net, where you can sign up. I think it's right there on the homepage. Andrew, you can check that. Is it right there on the homepage? And it would allow you to register for 1, 2, 3, or 4 of the shows. They're on October 28th and 29th, 5:30 and 7:15 times. If you know Father Joe Krupp, he's a very talented, thoughtful, and funny priest. He will be there on, I believe, he hasn't really set up for which night yet, but he is planning on it. So that's great. So we'd absolutely love to have you. Hi, Dr. Ray. Is it wrong? Okay, now see, I got to stop right there. This is what we've done to parents. Parents now feel that decisions that they need to make for their family's well-being and for benefit, wise decisions, they have to check with the experts to make sure it's okay that they're allowed to do that, psychologically speaking. We really, yes, you can get somebody's opinion and you can get somebody's thoughts and you can get somebody you respect, whether they're someone in your social circle or some shrink type, but the decision is yours. So for a parent to say, is it wrong, is essentially saying what is the psychologically correct way to approach this situation. And the irony there is, you take 100 shrink types and you ask them this question that you're just about to ask, you're going to get a whole bunch of different answers. A whole bunch. Especially on this topic. Absolutely, there's no doubt in my mind. But in the end, the decision's yours. Is it wrong to choose to homeschool one of your kids for high school because there are trust and communication issues? Now, I think those are code words for behavior problems. Code words for this is a kid who's pulled some stunts. This is a kid who needs monitoring. This is a kid who's maybe easily influenced by the peer crowd. This is a kid who gets into things with the peer crowd. A whole bunch of possibilities here. But the parent is saying, okay, I'm at a loss to know how to stop it. So I'm seriously considering homeschooling. That's okay. That's your decision as a parent. But Dr. Ray, what if I'm wrong? How do you define that? Well, I don't know how it's going to work out. How it's going to work out does not determine whether it was wrong or not. You could make all kinds of good decisions that blow up in your face. She is immature and not where her peers are, and we want to protect her innocence as well. Sounds like Mom is saying she's easily influenced. Follows the crowd. Okay. Our family thinks, there it is. There it is. Our family. I don't think she's saying her immediate family. She's saying her relatives, maybe parents, siblings, extended family. Our family thinks that would be unfair. Do you parent by consensus? Do you take a vote? Well, let's see. We've got 9 people who say don't do it and 2 people who say do it. However, the 2 people who say do it are Mom and Dad. Those are the only votes that count. Our family thinks that would be unfair. That she would be the only one homeschooled. Okay, apparently there are other kids here. And they're concerned about this one being particularly influenced by the peer group. Maybe she's already done some things that make them very nervous about how easily she can be pulled along. And our family also thinks that having trust and communication issues should have no influence on our decision to not send her back, or to apparently this youngster is in junior high right now, to not send her to a public high school. So the family says, because you can't trust her, and because you really can't know communication issues, what's going on, that she could be particularly deceptive or sneaky, that is not a reason to homeschool. No. More often than not, and this is surprising to me, it is the grandparents who are against a parent homeschooling. For multiple reasons. The more common ones are, you went to public school or you went to private school and you're fine. Are you saying we did wrong? I think that is a theme underlying some of it. Another theme is the kid's not going to be normal. The kid's going to be a weirdo. Well, the question becomes the whole socialization process of public school. Is it on your side or is it against you? In many respects, these are not the same public schools in their approach that your parents went to. Your parents went there 50-some years ago. Radically different school environment. Not only from the administration on down, but from the peer group. And they're still in a bit of a time warp. School was the best time of my life. I loved high school. I did too. I actually had a great time in high school. But that was a long time ago. The high school environment now that our kids go to in many respects is not a good one. So if the parents are saying this particular child is one who is easily pulled along down some self-destructive or hurtful paths, and we want to forestall that, that's their decision. But you see, they're second-guessing themselves. We homeschooled our 10 kids. Now, I say we because I helped. Oh, yeah. I remember one of the times my son, he was, I think, in 7th grade, dropped a pencil. And I said to his younger brother, would you pick that up for your brother, please? So, see, I did my fair share. Okay. We homeschooled. My wife said she would never have had the relationship with the kids that she has if she didn't have all that time with them. And by the way, academically, they performed very, very well on college admissions tests. So given all that, for us, it was a wonderful thing. Now, that was 20 years ago. More. Well, not quite. 20 years ago. So here's a mom who's saying, I got people around me saying, this isn't fair what you're doing to your daughter. Secondly, just because you can't trust her and just because she's easily influenced, those are not good enough reasons. They're not? Really? What happens if you try it for a year and then you decide? This is not a written in stone decision. Her sophomore year, you could try it. We sent one of my children to high school. She didn't do well. We pulled her back home to homeschool. We sent one of our other children to high school. He did very, very well. He was not easily influenced. She was. Okay. It was a decision we made. He was in high school while she was being homeschooled. We did that because in our judgment as parents, that was the move to make. Dr. Ray.
Do you own popular index mutual funds or ETFs? If so, you're automatically own shares of companies that conflict with your moral beliefs. Ave Maria mutual funds are managed to conform to pro-life and pro-family values. Long-term investors can invest in the no-load Ave Maria mutual funds. The experienced professional portfolio managers make decisions based on investment fundamentals and pro-life values. You can learn more about Ave Maria mutual funds today at 866-AVE-MARIA or visit AveMariaFunds.com.
teaches that Jesus Christ is literally and wholly present, body and blood, soul and divinity, under the appearances of bread and wine. In the Bread of Life discourse documented in John chapter 6, Jesus states that he is the bread of life, and that his flesh is true food and his blood true drink. The Jews were scandalized in verse 52. How can this man give us his flesh to eat? Jesus does not back down, but reiterates this teaching 4 more times over the next 4 verses. Many left in verse 66 because this teaching was truly difficult. But at no point does Jesus water down his teaching and call them back. No, he allows them to leave, and even questions his 12 apostles if they too wish to leave. Jesus intended to be understood literally, and the Jews, apostles, and the Catholic Church absolutely take him at his word. Examining the truth of the Catholic faith, this is faithforensics.org.
This program brought to you in part by Ave Maria, Florida, a big kind of small town where golf carts take you everywhere and there's always something fun around the corner. Discover championship golf, resort-style amenities, and a town center full of shopping and dining. With Ave Maria University and Ave Maria Catholic Church at its heart, it's a community full of connection and charm. More than 25 model homes are available for viewing. More information can be found at avemaria.com. That's avemaria.com.
Just a couple minutes left. So I was wrestling whether to do a C.S. Lewis or to make some further comments on our previous e-person's letter that says, is it wrong? When I first got out of grad school, I had an internship prior to graduating at a place called the Columbiana County Mental Health Center in Lisbon, Ohio. And I stayed there. They hired me on after the PhD and after the license. I stayed there. I was there for 10 or 12 years. And I forget all the details on how I became involved in the parenting guy at that time. But and I think it was more or less my choice because I saw motivated parents as being able to make changes that would occur more quickly and more durably with their kids than, by and large, the adult changes that would take place when somebody's struggling with a lot of matters in their life. Over the course of, let's see, over the course of about 3 to 4 years at the Mental Health Center, having talked to many parents, I was rather surprised at certain themes that were coming through. And these were from parents across the spectrum, from very good parents, professional parents. Matter of fact, professional parents were probably the ones more likely to be caught up in this particular parenting quagmire. And I noticed that there was a lot of insecurity. There was a lot of, am I doing something wrong? How do I know I'm psychologically right? Second guessing, uncertainty. And I remember as this theme kept getting stronger and stronger and stronger, I thought, I got to write a book on this. I got to write a book that deals with this. It was a phenomenon that I hadn't really heard a whole lot of. This was a long time ago. I hadn't really heard a whole lot of among my profession. My profession was more or less, we have the psychological answer, so listen to us, as opposed to all of our voices spinning in parents' heads, making them unsure of themselves and second-guessing and lacking resolve and losing authority. And I wrote the book, You're a Better Parent Than You Think. I had no expectation that book was going to be picked up by anybody. I had never written so much as a column. I had never written anything in a small paper. Here I was, some no-name psychologist in a small mental health center in a tiny town in Columbiana County, Ohio, sending off a book with this theme. bringing confidence back to parents. It was accepted by a major New York publisher. And the only thing that I could think of is it struck a chord with the very people that were probably most insecure about their parenting and most wanting to be psychologically correct and most fearing to be psychologically deficient. Only thing I can think of. And that phenomenon is still very powerful today, perhaps even more so. Thank you for joining me here on The Doctor Is In. Good Lord permitting, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Walk with God. Don't be insecure on that one.
For information on Dr. Ray's presentations, books, and CDs, visit drray.com and follow him on Facebook and Instagram. The Doctor Is In is a co-production of Ave Maria Radio and EWTN Radio and carried across the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.